Folks, welcome back to another episode of Coffee, Tea, and Crime. Today we're going to be looking at trouble on the tracks. Folks, this story is going to begin in the late 1950s. The New York Central Railroad decided they were going to move operations from Niles, Michigan, down to a new rail yard in Eckerd, Indiana. Now, this move caused the layoff of more than 75 trainmen in Niles, and also a number of train crews on the Niles seniority list was cut from 22 to 5. Now, the railroad let the unions take care of the job dilemma. They were going to wash their hands of that. They didn't want to look like the bad guy. So now what the union did, they decided that 52% of the personnel needed at the Eckerd yard would be filled by men from Eckerd. And the other 48%, or what was known as the Michigan percentage, would be the men that came from Niles, Michigan. So now a good many of the Eckerd men from there in Indiana, they lost seniority to the Michigan guys. And they either got bumped to a lesser position or they were laid off. Now, one of these laid off is going to be our suspect. Our suspect was a lifelong lover of trains. His daddy had worked for the railroad. Our suspect had too. He'd done time in the Korean War and he was operating trains. It's August 3rd, 1963. Now, a fella that was a switchman at the Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad, he came into work. Now, that railroad facility's in Hammond, Indiana. Now, this worker, he goes up to the locomotive and he speaks to the engineer and to the fireman. So now they're sitting there on the tracks and they're waiting for clearance so they can go on and do their run. So now he's up in the cab with them. And they hook up their 55-car freight train. They go to the far end of the yard. Now, it's a little bit after 1 o'clock in the morning. And the switchman, he gets down off the engine and he walks up to the west end. And he calls the tower there and he's wanting clearance. So now there's a little bit of delay. They're waiting on another train to clear the tracks. A few minutes later, he gets the call back and they said, okay, it's clear. So he throws the switch and he waves his lantern to signal the engineer to come on. Well, he doesn't get a return signal, so he walks back down towards the engine. The whole time he's giving that signal to come on, and he's not getting any reply. Now he walks up to the side of the engine and notices that the engineer's head's laying partway out of the side window. So he climbs up in the engine and he touches the fella's arm, and then he notices that there's blood on him. And then he looks over there and the fireman's laying there and he's got blood on him. The police are called, they get out there and it's found that both these railroad employees have been shot multiple times with a .22 caliber rifle. Now, this was going to be the first but not the last, as this murder of railroad employees was going to go on for another 15 years. As we're going to see, 7 trainmen are going to be dead. And that area of tracks and those particular stations are going to run from the Hammond yards all the way down to Jackson, Michigan. 5 years go by. There's no trouble. Well, trouble comes anyhow. August 6, 1968, engineer, he's standing out by his locomotive there in the Eckerd yards in Indiana. He's shot multiple times by a 12-gauge shotgun, close range. Now, witnesses said they saw a person, a shadow, a silhouette of somebody walking away from the scene out there. It was a particular gait that this person had. That particular gait's gonna lead back to the suspect eventually. Well, now it's March 30th, and this is 1969. An engineer, he's in the Eckerd yard, and he's walking over towards his locomotive, and he's shot twice in the back by a .357 Magnum. Now, he falls, he gets back up, he confronts the shooter, they get in a brawl. The victim, he gets the gun away from the suspect and shoots him twice. So now it's our suspect that had did the shooting. Now both men survive, and the suspect, they're going to get him for attempted first-degree murder, or attempted murder in any event. They end up cutting the deal, and he pleads guilty to aggravated battery, and he got 1 to 5 year sentence there in prison. Now he served 18 months and was paroled in 1973, and you would have thought that might have caught somebody's attention, but evidently it did not. April 5th, 1976, Eckerd Yards again. An engineer, he gets shot in the head, killed, while he's sitting in the cab of his locomotive down there near the diesel house. Now the police got suspicious by then, and they decided to keep an eye on our suspect. In fact, they kept a close enough eye that in January 1978 they arrested him outside a South Bend, Indiana gun shop, and he's got him a pistol that he just bought. Well, now he's a convicted violent felon, so the local police there in South Bend, they notify ATF, and our suspect, he goes back into the pokey. And he did 11 months federal prison on a weapons charge. And then he's back out. December 31st, 1978. Conductor and the flagman, they're in the trainman's locker room there in Jackson, Michigan. Now he's sitting in there, and our suspect walks in there with a shotgun, shoots and kills both men. Now as he's leaving, another fireman who's coming in to work, he gets shot on the platform while he's trying to enter the train station there. Now later the suspect would tell police that he was staying in a hotel there in town, which the police later found out about. Says he went down to the depot and he had a suitcase with him, and his shotgun was in the suitcase. When he gets there on the platform at the Jackson station, he puts his shotgun together, goes through the doors into the lobby, and then through the doors into the locker room. And he shot the one fella while he's sitting beside the door, and the other fella was sitting at a table, and he shot him. And then he shot them each an extra time. And as he's leaving, he runs into the third victim, who's getting ready to come in the door, and he shoots him. Now by now our suspect is number one on the police's list from one end to the other. Now a few days after the mass murder at the Jackson station, some hikers found a shotgun outside a park there in Jackson. They checked the serial number, and it comes back to our suspect. They test fire the shotgun, and the firing pin indentations on the cartridges of the test rounds matches those used on the victims at the station. March 22nd, 1979, our suspect is booked for 3 counts of murder. He confesses. Now, unfortunately, the Michigan Supreme Court would later overturn that conviction in 1985. Told him he needed a lawyer. So they retry him. Now, the second trial in June of 87, suspect is found guilty once again. And he's given 3 life sentences consecutively, which that's what we want. Consecutive means he's got to do one, then the next, then the next. And sure enough, our suspect, he died in prison.